we're going to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Stacy, would you please read the roll call?
Okay, we are back in session and out of recess. 6:04. Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite is absent. Councilman Brian Locks.
Councilman at Large Brian Locks present.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan is absent. Councilwoman Ruby Melton.
Councilwoman Ruby Melton, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District, present.
Councilman Gary Donovan.
Councilman Gary Donovan, 4th District, present.
Councilman Edward McMillan is absent. Councilwoman Dawn Callahan.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan, 6th District, present.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker is absent. Councilman Christopher Vargo.
Councilman Christopher Vargo, 8th District, present.
Councilwoman Katie Muller.
Councilwoman Katie Muller, 9th District, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone is absent. And Chairman Nicholas Pascal.
Chairman Nicholas Pascal, present.
Okay.
Thank you, Stacy. This is our second meeting we're conducting for the budget meetings. It is now 6:05, and our first presenter tonight is Anne Marie Gradoya from the Tax Assessor's Office. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be presenting with Anne Marie on the Assessor's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Harmony.
Budget. What I'll talk about is the personnel section and then hand it over to Anne Marie to kind of talk about the remaining budget of the Tax Assessor's Department. So on the personnel side, the first thing that you'll notice on the budget is we do have positions in the 681 contract, as I discussed last night and you heard in the first few budget presentations, those are contractual increases per those contracts. So that would tie into our assistant to the assessor, our data entry analysts, and our technicians within the assessor's office. The second increase in personnel is really with the assessor's salary. So as we were looking at this increase in the assessor salary, it was really twofold that we were really looking at. If you notice, the primary reason was the assessor salary and the deputy assessor salary. If you look at those two salaries in the current fiscal year, the 25 adopted, there is literally only a approximately $700 difference with those salaries. So that's a disparity, especially as we go to hire for that position. We're really trying to look at the market and the salary range for that deputy position. If you don't know, we had a long-time deputy assessor, Doug, in the office. Unfortunately, Doug passed away in February. So that was obviously a big loss to the department from a knowledge standpoint. But, we have to review the job description and everything else related to that position within the office. It's a little harder because there's not a lot of difference between the assessor and the deputy assessor's range in salary when you look at FY25. Also, we did, in arriving to the mayor's recommendation, we did look at some comparable cities and what they're paying their assessors based on the population size, the certification, and other areas within the assessor's office as well. So those are two areas that we looked at in arriving at the assessor's salary increase for this fiscal year. I'm sorry, not this fiscal year, moving into next fiscal year, into 26. The second area I'm going to talk about is our overtime budget. We are looking at a status quo overtime budget. when you look at this fiscal year and fiscal year 25, you'll ask, well, why are you looking at a status quo budget when we spent so much this fiscal year in overtime? There was really a couple of reasons for the overtime spending in this year. Number one, we were in a reval process for this year, and the state had changed some of the, as we discussed, the motor vehicle law. That was very labor intensive for the assessors department, so that drove some of our salary, as well as we did have some vacancies in the department, and unfortunately, we did have some people out on workers' comp as well during this whole process of looking at reval, trying to get the grand list done in other areas of the assessor's office. So this fiscal year was really an anomaly with the overtime itself for the assessor's office. In prior years, we've really tried to stay on budget with the assessor's office related to overtime. When you look at, I know you guys have the 3-year average. So again, I want to look at it from the personnel perspective. I'll turn it over to Anne Marie to talk a little bit more about the department.
Thank you, Mr. Carmody.
Does anybody have any other questions regarding? So in printing, you're going to see $593 that was added for printing and mailing of pre-addressed income and expense forms. These forms now include barcodes allowing us to track submissions electronically, generate list of non-filers for review, streamline the creation of certificate of corrections for related accounts. And that is something that Doug Kidd did in the past, so I wasn't able to get to that this year. And it's actually going to work out better using them for that small amount of money, which is $593,000. It will help us keep track of them electronically. I also have a cost increase for printers. Currently, our office consists of 7 staff members who rely heavily on printing and scanning. Currently, we are all using one printer. We had 3 printers fail on us this year. So right now, with all the work we're doing, we are all sharing a printer in the front, trying to scan many, many documents and attaching them, and printing, and we go through them all. Who's this? Who's this? Put them in. It's not good time management at all. So that's about the only changes in the budget. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you, Anne Marie. Does anyone have any questions? Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Hi.
Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. So, I get that you're only getting 700, which to me is ridiculous, right? But then you requested 20,000 more originally, and then the mayor's suggesting only 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And first off, are you okay with that? With I know you'd like 20, but there might be some that may want to even go less than 10.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is the 10,000.
It's appreciated, you know.
Right.
I'm just, when I look at other towns, I'm not comparable at all to other municipalities at all. So
I get that, and with all due respect, and I care and appreciate everything that everybody does, but when people come up and say, well, I look at this town and that town, unfortunately, that town's not us, and it's not.
Yeah.
We're not in that. They're not in that dire strait as we are, and I get it. And I'd like to match. I really would like to match, and I'm not saying I'm not for this. I'm just throwing it out there and questioning. You got to question everything, right?
Yeah, no, we understand, and I think we tried to take every aspect into consideration as far as comparables. Just so you know, I mean, I'll throw it out there. We use, CCM is Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. Right. A lot of municipalities are members. They have something called a salary survey. We look at that. That also gives us population, town, staffing, things like that. So again, like you said, we try to find that balance between, what we can do as well as what's affordable for us as well.
No, I totally understand.
Yep.
Currently, just to say one thing, currently there are not many assessors. So there are, like East Haven hasn't had an assessor in probably 5 years. Trumbull hasn't had an assessor in probably more than 5 years. I could go on and on and on.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Listen, I've dealt with the assessor's office. You guys do a great job.
thank you.
Absolutely a great job. And with the printer thing, the 6,700 that the mayor's requesting that suffice for another printer or two?
What was it, 6,700?
I think that's what she's requesting, right?
Yeah, the increase, yes,
Or
the
8,100,
increase
sorry.
going from 4,000 to 6,700. We did price out some printers. We'd also be working with the IT in conjunction with the IT because they purchase a lot of our technology equipment, and they also may have some funds to supplement if we do go over what we estimated as far as the printer needs and things like that.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilman. Stacy, I just wanted to make it known that Councilman McMillan is present. Thank you. Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Emery. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Regarding your position, I don't know if you or Mike would know this. What is considered market rate for New Haven County?
There are variables.
I guess for someone with your experience and
Yeah.
qualifications.
Yeah. Now, do you really want that?
Probably not. Okay.
So I think we can take a look. I mean, again, we use the CCM salary survey, which kind of does municipal towns itself. I mean, in New Haven County, I think it also depends on the municipality and things because you compare it to like a New Haven, which is much larger, that salary, of course, is going to be a little bit bigger. East Haven, slightly small. So it depends on that, certifications, and a bunch of other criteria. I think we try to kind of land in that range with the mayor's recommendation.
The assistant to the assessor and I believe there was one other position that was out. Are they back at work now?
No, the deputy assessor position I have not hired
I know
back
that's
again.
vacant. But
Yeah.
what about the assistant? To
Assistant to the assessor, yes, she's back.
Is that a clerical position?
These are all clerical positions, but even more than clerical. Just
So we don't have to. I guess really my point is that we're not worried about additional overtime to cover that individual's
right.
workload
Yeah.
because that person's back.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you're looking to have to purchase printers for each individual to make their work
Yes.
more efficient.
Yeah.
Okay. On the map printing line item, you had requested a $7,045 increase, and that was not included, and that's for something called Map Express. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think, and this will primarily go when IT's in front of you. So, in reviewing and going through this budget process, we have certain accounting standards that we have to maintain regarding to reporting and other things when it comes to like software maintenance and purchase of software and software agreements, because there's what's called a GASB standard where we have to report in the audit, how much that is going to cost us long term. One of the things I tried to do was consolidate the software and maintenance agreements so we're not looking all over the place for these. So essentially, that was really a move. We actually moved that into the IT maintenance budget. When they come before you, you'll see their budget did increase, and that was primarily because of some moves and adding on some of the new software maintenance agreements in their line. So it's really a net effect. It just moved out of the assessor's office into the IT office.
So we're not losing that service. It's
Correct.
just being captured somewhere else.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Councilwoman Callahan?
Thank you, madam. Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you. I know that you all work very hard in that department, and you guys are stretched, and not only with the printers and everything else, but I just want to say thank you.
I
From all
appreciate
of
that.
us. You all work very hard there, so we
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Thank you, Anne Marie and Mr. Gormany. I really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Welcome. All right. Mr. Gormany, you're up next for tax collector.
You know what I was going to say in case they want to ask anything?
Yeah, just give me any information. All right.
Oh, she is here. Is that Rachel?
All right, Rachel was not originally going to be here, but she is here, so I guess like Anne Marie, we'll give it together.
Thank you.
For councils,
Right.
page 60 is the tax collector.
So similar to the assessor, I worked with Rachel on the personnel side of her budget, and she'll fill you in on the non-personnel side and some other areas of the tax collector's office. The on the personnel side, a lot of other than Rachel herself, the tax collector who's elected, the remaining staff is all part of the clerical union, which again, their contract, they had contractual raises. So you'll see that within the revenue collection analysts, 1, 2, and the senior revenue collectors, those are all positions part of that union. They are getting the raises that are afforded to them. The other position, again, as we discussed, is the elected tax collector position. As I mentioned last night, we looked at all the elected positions. Some of these elected positions haven't received raises in years based on their stipend amount. So we increased the tax collector's position to $9,000, which is similar to the treasurer, and then a couple of other similar to the treasurer elected position. And in regards to overtime, the tax office has really done a good job managing overtime. We're right on budget for this fiscal year with overtime. We haven't had any real issues in overtime with the tax collector's office. Any overtime that is worked in the office is really seasonal based. Taxes are due end of July, in the month of July, and in the month of January. So that's really when we see some of the residual overtime, just because that's really the busy season of the tax office. But over the years, the tax department has really done a good job in managing the overtime. So that's really a status quo budget going from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26. And I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Hello, everyone. So the only changes I really have to my budget this year were the increase of processing of the tax bills because of the cost of stamps and mailing, slight increase in printing cost, training and education went up because we're getting another person in my office certified. So we'll have 4 people in my office at that point certified, so almost half. Our cash courier service, I was able to piggyback on the state bid for, which reduced our costs quite a bit. Other than that, everything else has stayed about the same. So other than that, what we have going on in the tax office, we filed our liens April 1st. We are prepping for our assignment. We did file about 150 less liens this year than we did last year. So that's a good sign. We call people. We're trying to get in touch with these people. We are filing UCC1 liens on the businesses to try, and we mail the copies of those liens to the businesses. So we are up on our personal property collections. The personal property bills that are not paid that have multiple years of delinquency, we are going to be looking for a state marshal to help us collect on those. And motor vehicles, we are a little behind on still because of the 3-year registration that the DMV changed to. So we are looking at booting in the next month or so. So other than that, I do have some of the stats on the new out-of-state unregistered vehicles. We've billed 488 bills. In the last 2 months, we collected $20,000 from that. There's about $97,000 in bills that are either due this month or next month, depending on when they were put in our system. And some of them are delinquent, but it didn't separate it out for me. Other than that, I don't really have anything else. Is there any questions you guys have for me?
Thank you, Rachel. I just had a quick question on the cash transport is down 41.7%. Can you
That's
explain that?
Yeah, that's our cash courier service. That's the
Okay.
one that I had found out that the state has a bid, and if the state has a bid for something,
Yep.
this municipalities can go off of that bid, and that bid was a lot cheaper than our contract. So
Okay.
I piggybacked on the state bid for it.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Rachel? Councilman Donovan?
Hi, Rach, how are you?
Hi.
Mike, I'm sure you mentioned it. I was looking through the paperwork, so I apologize for asking this question. That part-time elected, we've never had it before.
It's always been that way.
No, so we've always had a part-time elected tax collector. I think one of the things that you see in the budget, the reason it looks like it's new is because what we've tried to do for transparency purposes and accounting purposes, kind of separate out those part-time positions from full-time. In the past, it was included in the full-time wages, even though it was part-time elected.
Okay. Yep, that's what I was looking through. I was like, I didn't know if that was new. It's an election I missed, it's just something there, but thank you. I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Councilman Fargo?
Thank you. Mike, I'm trying to just understand the connection between the bottom line numbers, because they're kind of all over the place, and I'm not understanding why. So if you look at FY24, the actual was about 474,000. I'm just going to use round numbers. And then the projected for this year is 5056, but the requested budget is 544. It looks like the department is doing exceptionally well at remaining on budget, but the numbers are kind of all over the place.
So one of our senior revenue collectors is new. The budget for wages always is at top step.
Mm-hmm.
He's not on his top step. He's hitting his first step this May. So he still has 2 steps to go. So that's a big part of it. And I just hit my top step, so mine will be the right amount going forward. So, but this current year I was only on my 3rd step. So that's why the wages are different.
So is the difference between all those numbers primarily driven by the wages? It's not by the operational costs?
Correct. So as Rachel alluded to, one thing that the city of West Haven has always done is, again, budget at top step. So when you compare the budget to actuals, those numbers are going to fluctuate from time to time. And the reason that they've done that in the past is because, it depends on when people are hired, right? You can get a step in the middle, in December because that's your year anniversary. So that does play a part when you do compare the budget to the actual at times, depending on the fiscal year.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
There's one other thing for my budget. Our bills have not all our processing and mailing and our printing. The biggest bill comes in June when we do our July mailing. So that's the biggest part of my budget overall, and it's going to be the biggest line item that is still to be paid out.
Yeah, I understood the FY25 actual to date, and
Okay.
and you're gonna get close to what the projection for the 505, but that's still almost a $40,000 difference between the projected actual for this year and what is being asked for next year, and it's higher than what you have actually been spending for the last few years. But it looks like you run a very tight department, and there's not a lot that we can do with this. So I'm just curious why the numbers looked so
it was
weird.
The wages were the biggest one.
And again, that's just because you're not
different.
paying out at what we're budgeting for.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You as well.
Michael, you need to go.
We have we have about a minute. All right, up next we have Sherry Lepper in the Registrar of Voters office. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for seeing me. I'm sure you're looking at my budget, and there's a lot of minuses and there's a lot of pluses on the percentage side, because we had to change and take all the expenses that we did for early voting. We had to put in a different line item because the state gave us grants for early voting and they wanted documentation. So for me to get the money to West Haven, I had to go through and get all my expenses, put it on an Excel sheet, and give it to them. So I said to Mike, I said, I think we need a separate line item in case they do give us grants in the future. It'd be easier for me to just do a report from Eunice. So that's why there's a whole bunch of different line items under early voting. And we took some out, like everything was under temporary payroll for the general election. So we took some of that funds and put it into early voting. And I added a line item for security. Last year, I received a letter from the superintendent saying that they wanted the voting out of the schools. So, because they won't close the schools, especially on a primary year when it's in September. So, I was looking around and everything, and I think if I put security at the schools, I can keep it there. I'm hoping I can keep it there because the thing is, I mean, a lot of the schools I use have one access to the gym or to the cafeteria. They can't get in the schools. But I figure if I amped up security, maybe the Board of Education will allow me to have it, because since it's a city building and and it's the best handicap accessible buildings we can use, I didn't want to go outside and screw up all the voters of where to vote and send postcards. It costs a lot of money. So that's what I did for security. And then there's a rental of building. I put 1,000 just in case I run in a pinch and I need to rent out a building. Okay. Oh, 41. Okay. They were telling me, wait a minute. And that's about it. I mean, the regular wages is the 2% increase. Our two people in the office, they're not in the union, but they go by the union rules of getting an increase each year. Does anybody have any questions?
Sherry, when you spoke to the superintendent, did he okay having the voting in the schools if you were to have security? Did you talk to him about it?
Yeah, he said he wrote it out because we had a couple of parents at McCrell, and we always have issues at McCrell because the parking lot is small. I always say, why can't the staff park at the IA club? And the IA club allows them to do that, but they don't. And there's a couple of parents that were really like, I don't believe it. You know, our kids are going to school. You know, we have no security. Even though there's a security inside where we use the gym, we used to have it in the cafeteria. So then the superintendent moved it to the gym. So this way it's right in one entrance and one out.
Okay. So he's pretty confident that if we have security, we can keep it the way it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions for Sherry? Chairman Pascal, sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
good. How are you?
Good. The office manager position. What is it? We're changing the name of it.
So we are. We had it. Well, the Republican Registrar of Voters wanted to change that position. Didn't think it fit the duties to reflect her, so we changed that position to office manager.
Okay, but the other one does the same duties, and we're not changing that.
Yeah, because she's actually my administrative assistant, which really is my assistant registrar. We're not there all the time, so I mean, I need somebody there. If they have to sign something, she can sign things for me.
Okay. I mean, I've seen a few different budgets. I just never seen a change of the name of a position. Do you have any more information on that?
No, I think as Sherry mentioned, this was the request of the Republican registrar because, as you know, while it's one office, they each run their own side,
Right.
and sometimes they do things differently, which may reflect needing something in an additional job duty or two, and I think that's where the Republican registrar was looking at the job title for what her side of the office does, and trying to properly reflect what that person does within the office. And I think expanding on some of the duties, maybe on what that person does as well, to fit that job title. That's what she requested upon us when we were doing the budget.
All right. I'll accept that. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Fargo?
I'm gonna keep going with it for a little bit. You had two people fill in that position, administrative assistant. Did they essentially do the same job?
Say that again.
You had two administrative assistants
One was
for you, and one was for the Republic for Joanne. Did those individuals essentially have the same job duties and functions?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that determined by you? By you mean you
Well,
and
I
Joanne?
they're both appointed positions. I appoint my my assistant. She's really assistant registrar. That's what the charter says. You can appoint an assistant registrar. So I appointed her as that, so she can, if I'm not in the office, as you know, I don't have to be there all the time. She can sign things for me in case something should happen.
And the same goes for the other individual?
Well, Joanne is there most of the time. So
Okay.
I don't think it ever happened, that she won't be there to sign anything.
So, office politics being what they are, does this create any issues? Like, does this change what an office manager has a connotation of being a manager? It's in the word, in the title. So, is there any expectation this person's going to have oversight over other employees, that they're going to be able to command higher salaries?
No, I mean, like I said, we split the office, so she has only control over her side of the
Her side,
office.
okay. Okay. And then my last question, I'm very happy to hear that the Board of Ed is going to allow them to stay in. I go to Mr. Krill School for the voting, and that's my district, and I know of those issues. It's a tight parking lot, especially with the buses. It's not too much with the people inside because there's no children in that area, so I didn't really think that was the issue. I think it's the parking and the buses that's the problem. And if you remember last year, I was very much against taking them out of school. I think that would be very problematic. So I'm happy that you all are able to come to that compromise. So thank you for working, with Neil and everybody there to do that. The only question I really have is a broad question. It's an election year. A lot of your numbers went down. Are you comfortable that these figures will reflect the need of the office come, this fall?
I don't. Well, I'm hoping I don't anticipate a primary, so that's why I felt comfortable with reducing some of the numbers.
Your lips to the voters' ears.
True. Last year was a crazy year because we had a presidential preference, and it was the first time we did early voting too, and we didn't know how it would take. And as you could see, our numbers. I mean, the primary wasn't that bad with the early voting, but the general election was insane with the early voting, people coming out to vote. And this year we're getting new equipment, which is more secure. equipment. So ours should be delivered at the end of this month. The state takes the burden off of us. They pay for everything. And the only thing that's gonna like probably cost a little bit more money is the training that we have to train all the moderators how to use the new machine and stuff. But I do, like I said, I feel a little bit comfortable. I reduced it because I'm anticipating that we don't have a primary.
And I fibbed. I do have a couple more. What's the difference between a deputy registrar and the assistant registrars?
The deputy registrar comes in, she files, she can take, if the assistant registrar isn't there, she's my backup. If anything should happen to me, she takes over. Say I get hit by a car.
Don't say that.
Whatever.
Don't say that.
But she's supposed to be my backup person. My assistant registrar does all the office clerical work. She does all the online DMV voting registration we get in, prepares for the elections, does machine testing for, she sets all that up for me. But my deputy, like I said, is my backup person. And we have to, by law, we have to appoint a deputy right when we get in office. An assistant registrar, you don't have to appoint right away. But I do because I want somebody in the office.
And so you're calling this person into I hate saying that. What I don't want to use names, but so you're calling this person an assistant registrar, but they're in the system as an administrative assistant.
Yeah, there's supposed to be an assistant registrar in that office. And for some reason, the city changed it to administrative assistant. I don't know why, but technically, it's assistant registrar that can be like to do my clerical work.
And that's the duties that person's. These two people are doing.
Yeah, my person.
Got it. Thank you.
So when you say you're getting all new equipment, are you just talking about the voting machines?
Yes.
Okay.
The voting machines and the ballot bins.
Okay.
The voting machine, the tabulators go on.
Do you think, because we're projecting 16,000 or a little bit more,
so that.
can you explain that from dropping to 40%?
So voting machines, we use that for if, like, I'm gonna need more laptops for early voting.
Yep.
So anything that has to do with elections, it was always voting machines in that. But usually sometimes I would put election, like I got a laptop for early voting last year. I put it in that line item.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Sherry? Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's for both of you, because I'm still confused with, and I apologize for it,
That's
still
all right.
confused with the administrative assistant, office manager, how that's split. Is there a different criteria why it became an office manager? Is there something different there? Maybe it's me. I'm sure you.
I think the thinking behind this actual position is, again, as Sherry mentioned, and I mentioned, while it's one office, it's how each registrar runs their office. I think, honestly, the Republican registrar felt that based on how she handles her side of things and the duties of that person, she felt that the title of office manager was more appropriate for that person. To be honest, I can try to get more information and get it to the council through the chair.
I'm just curious as
Yeah.
to,
But again, I think it's how Sherry mentioned. They each, while it's one office, they each can run it, how they see fit within the statutes and the guidelines of the office. So.
and just for the record, it doesn't matter if it's the Republican registrar or the Democratic registrar. I just didn't know why that had to be changed.
Right.
For what reason? Is there like a motive down the road? Well, now I'm a manager. I should be getting more. Is the assistant? Are they both the same? Do they both say the same job description? Or no? Did that change as well?
Well, based on how the budget is approved, right now, I believe, they're both administrative assistants, as titled in the budget. I'll be honest, I don't have like their exact job descriptions for the registrar. but we can certainly look at that. I assume again, like what was mentioned to me is that those job duties for the office manager would be expanded to that job title for job duties would be expanded to that person, based on the Republican registrar's running of the office. So,
Understanding a little bit, but
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to.
still confused and still don't understand what the job title change really makes that much of a difference. But all right, thank you, Madam
welcome.
Chair.
I just had a quick question to kind of piggyback off of Councilman Donovan's concern about the name. Is it a union position?
These are appointed, right?
These are appointed.
Appointed.
So you appointed Veronica.
Okay.
And you appointed Danielle.
Are they both getting paid the same amount of money?
Yes.
Why wouldn't they both be called office manager then? Or why wouldn't they have the same job title? Or office assistant? Or why wouldn't they both be called assistant registrar or office manager is my question.
From my understanding, again, I think it's how both registrars run the office. That was the request of the Republican registrar to change that title. Like I said, I can follow up. with the
I think
council.
we need a follow up and a little bit more of an explanation because it's very confusing.
Yep.
Councilman Fargo?
Thank you. I'm sorry to beat this dead horse because I know this doesn't affect the bottom line this year, but I'm concerned that this is going to affect the bottom line in future years because if you're changing a job title, that there's could be an expectation that that's going to mean a change in duties, which might then change what salaries commanded for the position. So I'm concerned by setting a precedent that we're changing what two individuals conceivably do the same job, maybe a little bit differently. Maybe there's a few different nuances between the two, but ostensibly do pretty much the same job. You now have somebody that on the face of it is called an administrative assistant, which has a clerical connotation on it. And then you have somebody that's called an office manager, which now makes it look like it's a managerial position. I'm concerned what that might do, for the department. It might do for other employees. It might do for future budgets. Is Joanne here? No. Okay. Do we have the authority to not approve that?
I'd have to take a look at that. I believe by charter you have to have two positions there, one for the Republican and one for the Democratic registrar. As far as what the name is, that may be flexibility, but I think we have to look into that.
Well, I'm not talking about removing the position at all.
No, that's what I mean. The name.
Right. So the request has been made in
Yep.
this budget. We typically just we make adjustments to the numbers, but if there's a request to change a title, that's more of an executive. I would think it's an executive under the executive's purview.
Yep.
But since it's in the budget document that we pass, I'm curious if.
Right, we referred the budget to the city council.
Right.
Right.
So I'm curious if this body has the authority to say we're not going to change that for
I could
various
absolutely
reasons.
double check that with corporation counsel and
Thank you.
everyone else.
I don't want to put you in the middle, but if perhaps just some additional information from the office of why and what this will what the effect of doing this is. I'm just concerned that we're buying into a problem later.
All right.
Thank you.
I agree with Councilman Vargo. I think the positions, being that they're being paid the same amount, they're essentially doing the same job. They should have the same title. Not only will it cause a problem in the budget going forward, but I foresee something, there being problems kind of boiling up in the office as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Callahan?
It's not really a question, it's more of an observation. Is it fair to say that there are two different titles to just simply differentiate between Republican and Democrat?
No.
No, so they're right, it is the same job.
It's
I didn't know if that maybe they just wanted separate titles because you said the office is split
It's split.
on two sides, so maybe
Joanne
the,
requested it should be changed to office manager for her person. And I
so it's
can't
just a
an-
personal
and I can't
preference.
answer for Joanne because she's not here.
So it's just a personal preference. So I have to agree with my colleagues then on that it should be the same, just to eliminate problems. But I thought maybe it was just to maybe differentiate between parties.
No.
But okay, that's fair. All right, thank you.
Councilman McMillan?
Good evening. One quick question. I did hear you state that Neil is going to be allowing the voting in the schools, and I was just curious about my district, the 5th district. Will we be at Carrigan voting with a security guard?
I'm going to ask if we could bring it back to Carrigan. And like I said, we'll get security guards in all the schools. If school is closed, we won't need to. But like it's like every other year, like this year it's September. If there is a primary, I would do security guard throughout the school time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Melton?
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to go back to the two positions. Maybe you answered this, and I didn't catch it. Are those positions do they go out with job descriptions and titles when these folks are hired?
What do you mean out?
Well, I mean,
when
you, for example, the administrative assistant and the now request to change the title, I assume, from something that was an administrative assistant title to office manager, but when that person was hired, they were hired under a job description for an administrative assistant. Is that correct?
I don't know what Veronica was hired for since
Do they do their
Joanne-
own
I don't know
hiring?
how she was hired because she's not my employee. I only have the other half of the office, so I don't know how her paperwork is and how she was hired and what her job title was then.
So I'm new here, so
Yeah.
so the registrar goes out and searches for.
We get elected,
Oh, you
and
get-
then when we get into term, we appoint a deputy and we appoint an assistant registrar or an administrative assistant. We
You-
appoint them to do our clerical work in the office.
Oh, you appoint them. You don't.
Yeah, and they have 19 hours each.
And so, how do you search for them? How are they appointed? Is it through a job search or?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I see. It's an appointment.
It's an appointment, yes.
Okay, and so there's no real job description or anything of that sort? Is there, for example, just with your
It's
area?
like assistant registrar. We have assistant registrars that work at the polling locations.
Mhm.
We have 10 polling locations, and they're almost like they help the moderator set up the elections.
Right.
But this is inside the office, and they do clerical work for us. And we have Secretary of State sends us registration forms that people fill out. DMV, everything is online. People come in-person voting. We register them and then they set up all our elections for us. But they only work 19 hours a week.
And so you don't make the appointment?
I appointed my girl, the
Okay.
girl that works for me, and Joanne appointed her girl.
I see. And this is someone that you knew and someone that.
She was actually so I had Donna Wash that was here, and she was I appointed her for 8 years, and she retired. So then Danielle, who works for me now, she was my moderator at one of the schools. So I appointed her to work for me.
Okay, and so this title is the title that you gave to your assistant?
Yeah, according to the charter.
So the charter has the title set out in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're gonna look at and bring back to the city
totally
council is I
unfamiliar
think a lot, and Sherry can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the job functions that these two positions do are really governed by state statute and city charter and election rules and things like that. Obviously, they have some wiggle room with like office matters and administrative matters and things like that. But a lot of what they do is really defined by election rules and how things have to run in, paperwork, forms, administrative tasks, and certain things like that. Again, with some wiggle room by the Democrat or Republican registrar. Is that accurate?
Chairman, I could read the
thank
passage from the charter if you'd like.
Absolutely.
I have it up.
That'd be great.
So
Thank
it says
you.
they shall appoint deputies and assistant registrars as provided in the general statutes. Now we have deputy registrars listed, so what we're talking about here is assistant registrars. That's what we're talking about because there's nobody else in the office. All right, would that be correct? Would that be fair to say?
I think that's fair to say, and
All
that's why I think this is certainly a good conversation. And I think looking at those job titles based on the charter and elections and things like that may be the more appropriate piece. I know in the past budgets, they've been called different titles, and maybe it's time that we just look at, the passage that you just read and
Thank you,
looking at
Chairman
things like
Pascal.
that.
Thank you.
Councilman Vargo?
Chairman Pascal kind of went to where I was going, is that you kept using the term or the title assistant registrar, and that's I was wondering where you got that from, and that's in our charter.
Yeah, it's in our charter, and that's why I thought my person, I always refer to her as the assistant registrar, because if somebody comes up with petitions and I'm not at the office, she can sign those petitions as my assistant registrar.
But she's not called that in
I know.
in the system because of just the confines of the system, perhaps, or whatever the issue is.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what-
just
yeah.
think over past budget cycles, right,
Okay.
the titles have been labeled how they were in the budget cycles, but I think their duties or their basic duties have been defined by
Right. So you're in your mind, the person filling that position is filling the position of the assistant registrar, which has duties that are enumerated in our charter, and both individuals fill that criteria.
I can only speak for my person.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? Thank you both very much for your presentation. And that concludes today's presentations. We will recess and reconvene tomorrow, April 10th at 6 p.m. The time is now, what time is it? 6:56.